Hey, what's going on, everybody? Chris Meaney here of FTN, and here are a few of my top DFS plays for Week 2 of the NFL season. As you see up at the top, Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. These were both quarterbacks that I had in last week's video as my top DFS plays. I'm going back to the well, and as I also said, I'm not going to come at you every week with Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. These guys are really good. I'm not breaking any news. Play them. They're phenomenal. But what I wanted to say about Kyler Murray is, don't fade this guy. If you're going to spend up at the quarterback position, spend up on Kyler Murray. He certainly could return value. His true upside was on full display last week when he had 5 total touchdowns and 1 rushing score. 20 rushing yards is what Kyler had last week. This is a good spot here against the Vikings. Last season, he had 10 rushing touchdowns in his first 9 games before he suffered the shoulder injury against the Seahawks, and then he only had 1 rushing touchdown in his final 7 games. He's got a ton of weapons. Again, I probably won't bring up Kyler Murray again. I just didn't want people to fade him coming off that big Week 1 performance. All systems go, week in and week out, really, when it comes to Kyler Murray. Jalen Hurts is in here again. I just still think he's underpriced. 264 yards last week through the air, 3 touchdowns, 62 rushing yards, and a 77 completion percentage, 27 for 35. A really good matchup last week that he took advantage of against the Atlanta Falcons. This one here, the 49ers, a little bit tougher. The Birds will be at home this week. Jason Verrett, top corner for the 49ers, is done for the season. For Hurts, 334 rushing yards in his 5 starts. At least 60 rushing yards in 4 of those 5 games. The one game that he didn't get 60 rushing yards, he didn't complete it. It was Week 17, and he was pulled. The offensive line in Philadelphia, just 1 game, but it looks like the offensive line that was graded number 1 in 2 of the last 3 years. That's their strong point, and Jalen Hurts looks pretty comfortable in the pocket. I'm rolling him out. Until he gets up past the 7K mark, I think you got to roll him out. It's basically like starting with a touchdown and a half if he's going to give you 60 rushing yards per game. Let's take out Week 17, the game that he didn't play. 70% completion rate, 278 passing yards per game. 278 yards on the ground would be unbelievable. 74 rushing yards per game is what he's averaging. 278 through the air is what he's averaging. 8 touchdowns and 2 picks. Pretty phenomenal stuff. That's 27 fantasy points per game. We're not even talking DK, where you get bonuses. I don't think he's going to get 100 yards, but it's something that he did once already last season. All right, to the running backs here. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Naji Harris. You got Chubb against Houston. You got Joe Mixon against Chicago, and Naji Harris against Las Vegas. Let's start with Chubb. A pretty good matchup here against the Texans. For Houston, a team that just last week was the outlier. If you look at last season, 5.2 yards per attempt, number 1 in the league. 7 runs of at least 40 yards against, number 1 in the league, and a league-high rushing yards. 24 rushing touchdowns was second to Detroit. For Chubb, he doesn't need to get 20 carries here and catch 4 balls to return value. Last week, he had 15 for 83, and he had 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. He also caught 2 passes. He has at least 2 catches in 6 of his final 7 games, or 6 of his last 7, rather. The one that he didn't was Week 17, where it really didn't matter. 13 catches in his last 5 games. So it's not like he's not getting any targets. He may not get a ton of targets here in this game, as I expect Cleveland to roll against the Texans. They're 12.5-point favorites, and that's the point here. They're going to be up in the game, and they're going to run the rock. They're probably going to use a little Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt's going to get in there and catch a few passes. I don't care about any of that stuff. The fact that the Texans give up big plays, 7 40-yard runs last season, that's all Chubb needs. You give him 15 carries against this defense, he's going to run 1 or 2 of those to big gains, and he could find the end zone a couple times. So I like Chubb. I think he's underpriced. As for Mixon, it's his volume and opportunity. 29 attempts last week on the ground, a week high. 127 rushing yards, also a week high, and 33 touches and 33 opportunities. Nobody had more. 4 catches is what he had. He reeled in all 4 of his targets, and this is what he's averaged over the last 7 games, dating back to last year. 21.1 rushing attempts, 3.7 catches, and 24.7 touches. A true bell cow back, absolutely. And they didn't throw the ball a lot last week, maybe because Joe Burrow's coming off that knee injury, but they're giving the rock to Joe Mixon, and he was on the field during third down passing plays as well, which is a huge positive for his outlook, because last year when Giovanni Bernard didn't play, we were starting to see the catches and the targets pile up for Mixon. They drafted Chris Evans, who's a terrific pass catcher, and he wasn't a factor at all. And, Darrell Henderson looked pretty good running the ball against Chicago last week. He went 16 for 70. Naji Harris is somebody that I think could come here with a low ownership. I think he may be a little sneaky because last week was pretty underwhelming for the rookie back. 16 for 45 yards. He only had one catch on 3 targets. 2 of his 3 targets, though, came inside the red zone. Big Ben missed him. On one, it would have been a touchdown, and the other one was just a great defensive play. He played 100% of the snaps. I don't think he's going to play 100% of the snaps every week moving forward, but I think we can bank on 85 plus, at least 80% of the snaps. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's the last running back to have 100% of the snaps, and it happened in 2019. This is just a really good spot against the Raiders, and I know that Las Vegas played Lamar Jackson last week, but they gave up a week high 189 rushing yards and 5.6 yards per attempt. It wasn't just Lamar who ran all over them. It was Tyson Williams as well, who looked pretty good running the rock against the Raiders. He had a big rushing touchdown, and also he's the 4th string running back, and he looked good running against Las Vegas. They gave up 2 20-yard runs. No team gave up more than 1 last week. Play Naji Harris. This guy's going to be a big factor, and I think this is going to be his best game. And I know it's only number 2, but this one will be a lot better than his first one, which was okay. He had a couple decent runs. Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson. Let's start with Keenan Allen. 13 targets, 9 grabs, 100 yards last week. He really ate up Washington in the slot, and he's got just a dream matchup here against Dallas. According to our wide receiver cornerback matchup tool over at FTNDaily.com, he has the 2nd best matchup against Jordan Lewis, who he's going to see in the slot. In 14 games with Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen has 7 targets in all but 2. And the 2 games that he didn't reach 7 targets, he left early with an injury. One happened week 17 against the Raiders, and one against the New Orleans Saints. I believe it was on Monday Night Football. It was like Justin Herbert's coming out party. It was when, really well, I was like, whoa, this guy's really good. He had 2 targets, 2 catches. One of those catches, actually, he had a touchdown in one of those throws from Herbert. But if you just take out the 2 games, and it's 12 games with Herbert, 12.2 targets per game is what Keenan Allen is averaging with Justin Herbert. Cooper Kupp just seems like Matthew Stafford's guy, right? I think we saw it firsthand. Led the team in snaps, targets, catches, yards, everything. 10 targets, 7 grabs, 108 yards, had a touchdown, inches away from a second touchdown. You saw what DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett did to the Colts secondary. Matthew Stafford, this offense is going to cook this year, and Cooper Kupp is underpriced. Allen Robinson also underpriced, and I think a lot like Naji Harris. Last week, you could take with a grain of salt. It was a tough matchup. He had 11 targets, 6 grabs, and 35 yards. He played against the Rams. Now he has a matchup here against the Bengals. The 3rd best matchup according to our cornerback wide receiver matchup tool as well. 7+ targets 14 times last season. He's been a top 10 wide receiver in each of the last 2 years with poor quarterback play. I know everybody wants to see Justin Fields, but Andy Dalton's not that bad of a quarterback. It's probably the best quarterback, to be honest, that he's played with. He was a top 10 wide receiver last year, playing with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. 4 tight ends here, George Kittle and Noah Fant. Darren Waller, of course, you want to play him up at the top. I do believe he'll be chalky, but it is a tougher matchup against Pittsburgh. There's no Travis Kelce on the slate here. So I'm just going to drop down in terms of pricing and play George Kittle. I think Darius Slay is going to be all over Deebo Samuel, who had a monster game last week, over a 50% target share. I think Slay could do a decent job shutting him down. And for Kittle, just a really good player and a really good opportunity here for, targets and yards after the catch against the Eagles secondary. Philadelphia does one thing well on defense, and it's generate pressure and get after the quarterback and stop the run. Maybe that's a couple things that they do well. But the secondary's got some holes in it. I don't think that they're going to have an answer for George Kittle. And then Noah Fant, a big uptick here with Jerry Judy being sidelined for the next few weeks. Last week, he had 8 targets, 6 grabs, and 62 yards. I know that you look at Sutton as an uptick here with Jerry Judy out and Tim Patrick as an uptick as well. But Fant last year in his final 4 games, 22 catches on 33 targets. A better quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater now running the shots and all the plays in Denver. Noah Fant is in for, a big price increase over the next couple weeks. So now we're getting him, I think, underpriced. Take advantage of it now as you can. If you're looking for more, FTNDaily.com. We got projections. We got ownership projections. We have content, tons of content, a lot of DFS shows, a lot of articles. It's right there for you. The Discord chat. Use the promo code Meaney if you're looking for a bit of a discount. Check out ftndaily.com/pricing. Good luck this weekend, and we will talk to you soon.